I don't believe my eyes. I might have to actually give credit where credit's due here. Screen Rant might have done an article which kind of might have a point. Yeah, let me show you. So I was just perusing the internet looking for Dragon Ball news, and I stumbled across this particular article on Screen Rant. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Screen Rant, they are known for making rather clickbaity and bemusing articles which could easily be debunked or not quite enough to make news. This opinion piece, although it's still in the comics news section, which, I have to dock a point off for that one, this kind of made me think about General Blue. Even though there have been more powerful characters that have made his techniques a bit moot, that original template, it kind of has a point. And I'll tell you why I think this might have legs. Not a lot of legs, but it's very good for Screen Rant standards. Dragon Ball's weakest villain could easily beat a Super Saiyan. Well, I don't know about easily, but could at least hold his own if he was able to, pull it off. Let's just say in a D&D or Pathfinder game, he rolled a nat 20 and Goku rolled a really low throw. It's feasible within the realms of possibility, but it's not a dead cert. There is a villain introduced in the early pages of the Dragon Ball manga that is physically weak, but has a power that can take down a Super Saiyan. Possibly, if the story allows it. While the Super Saiyan form is one of the strongest transformations in Dragon Ball because each of its stages are more powerful than the last, there is one villain who, while physically weaker than a Super Saiyan, could easily beat one in a matter of seconds. Then what? Then what do you do? This goes on to talk about Super Saiyan, when it was discovered, yada yada yada. So, context about Super Saiyan, as if you need to know what Super Saiyan is. Super Saiyan, big, strong, angry, golden hair, grrr. Here's the meat in particular. In Dragon Ball Chapter 77 by Akira Toriyama, apparently, a villain with the Red Ribbon Army known as General Blue is chasing Bulma, Krillin, and Goku as a team of child adventurers are tracking down the Dragon Balls. Blue wants to get his hands on them first, of course, because he works for the Red Ribbon Army for Commander Red, because he wants to be taller. General Blue, while an imposing fellow, isn't that strong in terms of raw power. He's incredibly strong for a normal human, but when compared with the likes of Goku, Blue isn't able to hold his own in hand-to-hand combat, and even Krillin. So, General Blue has a secret ability that he reveals in this chapter, and he has the power to paralyze his victims. And these are known as psychic eyes, or look into my eyes. Or he just stares down his opponent with his hungry eyes. If, in theory, Blue wanted to, he could just take a rock and smash Goku's skull in. Essentially. Dragon Ball is over. Well, until Mutant Roshi actually gets on you. So, if General Blue's opponent looks him in the eye, they become paralyzed, unless he releases them or his focus is disrupted by an outside force, which comedically happens. Blue's opponents remain frozen in place no matter how strong they are. The parameters of General Blue's power, as described in these early Dragon Ball chapters, indicate that even if he was going up against a Super Saiyan, Blue would just need to make eye contact with them and the fight would be over before it even began. Unfortunately, General Blue was later killed in a later Dragon Ball chapter and never got the chance to test his impressive ability on an actual Super Saiyan, because he was taken down by Mercenary Tao with his tongue. You thought this was a bit bonkers? Well, Mercenary Tao would have something to say about that. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because, in theory, it is kind of interesting. Now, I bet you're thinking, if you've seen the original Dragon Ball anime, oh, well, he used it against Tao and it didn't work at all. Tao was completely unaffected. Well, he only did it in the anime. In the manga, Tao just straight up ended him before he even had the chance to use it. Unfortunately, the anime was kind of tied down that General Blue had to be offed. You could try and use the Psychic Eyes ability, but then it wouldn't work because that's not how the manga goes. Tao is supposed to take down Blue. General Blue's Psychic Eyes technique, much like Chaozu's psychic and telekinetic abilities against Nappa, are susceptible to the whole, hey, I'm a big stronger guy than you. Okay, sorry, I'll get out of the way of the plot for you. That's just how stories go. But if you were to, at that moment, say, Super Saiyan Goku, at that precise moment, replace that Goku, you could, in theory, have Blue paralyze him. In theory. If this were to go without any restrictions of linear narrative, like, say, for example, if this was a what if General Blue won, then in theory, General Blue could have won. But, unfortunately, with the manga and the way things go, yeah, you're kind of tied down. I just wanted to give props to this because, honestly, this article sort of had a point. We do talk about how Screen Rant gets things wrong some of the time. This time, I just wanted to point out something that was relatively good, or at least relatively logical. And also, just another thought I really wanted to say is like two-shot telekinesis, which is another thing that General Blue has, is that he can imbue telekinetic powers and energies into any particular object, and they can essentially become indestructible. So in theory, General Blue's power set, not just the psychic eyes, were really potent. If it hadn't been for Mercenary Tao or comedic intervention, then he could have done the job. Goku's not really trained his mind in the time since he first met Master Roshi. Even back then, in the original Dragon Ball, it was even worse. He was only just beginning to even understand the concept of martial arts and discipline. So at that time, Goku's brain and intelligence levels probably weren't that great. So General Blue could, in theory, just get around that. In terms of actually taking over Goku's mind, or being able to take control of his body, in theory, plausible? Again, this article was somewhat legit. If you wanted to take the concept of the action comedy that is Dragon Ball into a direction where, oh yeah, this really weak human has powers that could take down the strongest warriors. If you wanted to go down that route in terms of a plot, yeah, sure, it would work. But would you have a Dragon Ball story where Goku was the main protagonist? Well, no, you wouldn't. But in the realms of the what-ifs, then, yeah, sure. Unfortunately, progress prevents this from happening. But again, in theory, if you were to do, like, say, a death battle, and General Blue had the right opportunity and the right circumstances to be able to pull off Psychic Eyes, whilst also not losing his cool, not being nervous, and also not having anyone else to distract him, because remember, the Psychic Eyes, you have to be looking at your target constantly. If you get, like, say, hit on the head with a rock, or something distracts you and you are distracted, then, yeah, sorry, game over, chum. Then you're done. There are a lot of things that sort of break the illusion in this, but again, I like how the article says could, not would. That would be incendiary. But the easily thing, not too sure. Depends on the context and the circumstances. But again, the article is not that clickbaity. It's enough to pique my interest, but it's not really scummy, let's just say. So again, props to Spencer Connolly for coming up with something that actually made me think. But it then makes me think about other characters. He is the first big character in Dragon Ball to have had these techniques. Master Roshi has something similar. Shin, Zamasu in the manga, Chaozu, of course. Chaozu is even probably more advanced than General Blue, but at this time in the story, we didn't have a Chaozu to rely on. Chaozu, as I said, his telekinetic powers, which could have been very useful in the anime going forward into Z, just weren't really going to cut it, because he tried to use them against Nappa, who you think would be susceptible to mind attacks, completely trounced him. He was able to break it. That was sadly down to plot progression. The Saiyans were meant to be very terrifying creatures from space. Chaozu just could not quite have the staying power to make it work. Goldo, in theory, has paralysis techniques through time freeze. You have to hold your breath. So unless you have a breathing apparatus to help you hold your breath, or you can hold your breath for hours, then there's only a fine limit to what you can do with this. So long as General Blue didn't have to blink, which I think with this power set, you don't have to blink, or you could blink with one eye at a time, it could be alright. But again, Dragon Ball is an action comedy, so you can't have this power work all of the time. That's just an important thing to remind you folks. Dragon Ball is an action comedy. It's not just pure action. There has to be some things which sort of alleviate the tension. And sometimes Dragon Ball Z got lost in it, but in the original Dragon Ball, not so much. So I just thought I'd point this out to you folks. This was an article that definitely got me intrigued, and yeah, it wasn't one that made me angry. It made me actually think a little bit. What if General Blue did fight Super Saiyan Goku in a what-if scenario? He could pull off Psychic Eyes and maybe use two-shot telekinesis on some other kind of apparatus, maybe Goku's own clothes to try and constrict him somewhat. But then what? Could he easily beat a Super Saiyan? Not easily. Yes, you could do some things, but then you'd have to have some other kind of plan to take down Goku. That's the flaw in this theory. You'd have to have some other means or another accomplice that could take down Goku. So if General Blue was with Frieza, for example, or another big bad, and he was there to hold Goku down and the others deck Goku in the schnoz, then sure. But one-on-one, he'd have to have a lot of planning going into it before he could take the victory. So I just thought I'd say. Anyway, let me know what you think. Does this have legs? Do you think I'm just talking nonsense? Credit where credit's due. That's all I'll say. Anyway, hope you're doing well, folks, and I shall see you again in the next video. Catch you later.